Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
So at this point, we go around and introduce ourselves, and we'll do a special welcome to a new member that showed up today. Let's start with me. My name is Oswaldo Garcia.
Stuart.
I'm Nick. I'm Brad.
I'm Joe.
I'm Jim.
Farouk.
I'm Jim.
I'm Warren. My name is Ivan. My name is Tom.
I'm Bob.
My name is David.
Jeff.
I'm Clint.
Larry.
Matthew.
Stephanie.
Francesco.
Andreas.
My name is Jerry.
My name is Cass.
I'm Tony.
I'm Paul. Peter.
John.
Risha. I'm Hal.
My name is Harley.
Luan.
Jim.
Jay.
My name is Gary.
Yeah, and actually, it's my job now to introduce you more formally, Gary. So Gary Ost is an Episcopal priest living in San Francisco. He began his study of the Dharma in 2008 with the Shambhala school of Tibetan Buddhism. Since then, he has practiced daily samatha-vipassana meditation. He recently declared his aspiration to help Christians understand Buddhism better and Buddhists to understand Christianity better. Gary has also informal bodhisattva vows and is studying the Lojong teachings of the 11th century Tibetan monk Atisha. Out of these teachings, he continues to explore the transformative psychological effect of Tonglen, a personalized mantra practice accompanied by taking in and sending out the breath. He would like to share today some insights on the effectiveness of this practice in helping people find a skillful way to respond to the challenges of the current political situation. So, welcome, Gary.
The first thing I'd like to say is that I was very inspired and touched by Bill Weber's Dharma talk last week. And what I was most inspired by, in a way that is challenging me to step over to the edge of a cliff for me, is that he shared what it's like to try to come from the heart while you're talking, rather than speak from a lecture. So I have to say that I probably have had the experience of preaching up to 1,800 sermons in my life. Because if you do a little bit of math, if you're a parish priest for 36 years and you preach about 50 times a year, that comes to about 1,800. So sometimes I see the temptation to be preachy, and my intention is not to do that. My intention is to be like Bill Weber was last week, because he spoke in a way that was invitational, which is one of the things I love about Buddhism, is that it seems always in its teaching to be invitational. I have my opinion that may actually be the way Jesus was as well, and then things went south. So I have been engaged for a number of years in the use of Tonglen, which is one of the teachings in the Lojong teachings from Tibetan Buddhism. In a way, I've been spending more time looking at the Lojong slogans in the last couple of years than I have been in looking at Tonglen, although I use Tonglen every day of my life. I use it during my sitting meditation, and I use it on the spot during the day when stuff comes up. So I think what I want to do is to share a little bit of the context of the Tonglen practice as it shows up in the Lojong teachings. And in order to do that, I think I need to share a little bit of history about Lojong. So that's how it's spelled, Lojong. And it is, the word means mind training. The word, actually, Lo means mind, and the word Zhong means training. It is in the Tibetan tradition, and it took about 300 years to get there, starting with the work of Atisha, who in the 11th century left Sumatra, where he had been studying with another teacher. He originally came from Bengal. He did some studying on the mind training techniques in India, where there was already an incipient school of mind training. Shantideva, in his book A Lamp for the Path to Awakening, where you get introduced to the very concept of the bodhisattva. The part about being a bodhisattva that attracts me is not, I'm not going to heaven until everybody is. I sort of am with the Buddha on that one. Heaven is one of those topics that probably is going to make your mind go crazy, so you shouldn't talk about that so much. But the concept of the bodhisattva that Shantideva talks about is wanting to spread the awareness of bodhicitta amongst all people, so that they can wake up to the fact that they already are enlightened, and to spend your life being on the edge, trying to confront your own fears and encourage other people to confront their own fears. So Tonglen comes out of this great desire to confront your own fears. But getting back to the Lojong as a historical development, although Atisha brought it to Tibet in the 11th century, what we use today are the 59 slogans that were formulated by Chekowa in the 12th century, another Tibetan monk. And he wrote the book Training the Mind in 7 Points. So he divided the 59 slogans into 7 points of training, and invited people to use his slogans, or aphorisms they are called, which means pithy sayings, in order to expand your mind and to focus on cleaning up the cobwebs of our minds, employing mindfulness in a very focused way, and using 59 targets for how you can do that. So one of the things that I did, that I shifted in my personal practice in the last couple of years is my daughter very kindly gave me Pema Chodron's Compassion Box, which is a box of 59 Lojong cards. And at first I thought I better do this systematically, so I started going through card 1, card 2, card 3. But then I decided to be a little bit more serendipitous. So I would shuffle the cards and take whatever card came up. And some very surprising things have happened in the course of doing that. After that, I decided to use a random number selector from on my iPhone, I am given to mystery. It is true. So I have been amazed the times when I have got just the card that I needed for the time that I was in my life that day. And then I decided, I think I'm going to stay with this card until I'm done with this card. And some of the cards I've stayed with for a week, some of the cards I've stayed with for a month. The one that I am currently on when the world is filled with evil, transform all mishaps into the way of bodhi. I've been on for probably 4 months. And I use the teaching to develop different Tonglen mantras for my daily practice. And all that comes from Chekawa, who is the one that organized the pithy sayings into 59 slogans under 7 different categories. And it is from his book that we have commentators today who help us to understand Lojong. So another couple of examples. I already gave you the one that I've been working on lately, which is slogan 11. When the world, no, it's not slogan 11. I can't remember what number the slogan is. 53, I think. When the world is filled with evil, transform all mishaps into the way of bodhi. But early on, number 56 was one that I spent some time with and became intimate with my own tendency to feel sorry for myself. The pithy saying is, don't wallow in self-pity, out of which I wrote a number of different Tonglen exercises or mantras to help me become familiar in a gentle way with that tendency in myself. Number 31 is another one that I have spent a good deal of time on. Don't malign others. By the way, you get an insight both from the Lojong teachings and from a number of the writings of the Buddha, what was really going on in the monasteries of those days. Dealing with the fact that people were maligning each other, except that this particular slogan is pointed at you as well as the people that you're maligning. So you can spend time dealing with maligning yourself, which I have been doing. So, at any rate, that is the context, the historical context of Lojong. And now to place it in the context of your daily practice. So, you may not know this, but sitting practice actually can take 6 different forms, at least in the Tibetan tradition. I need to check in with others that know Theravada better than I do, like David Lewis, to see if they talk about the same thing. But in Tibetan Buddhism, samatha-vipassana, which is what we practice here, samatha means calm abiding, and vipassana means insight. So it is the combination of 2 techniques. One is a technique of focusing in until you find a bliss, calm abiding, and the other is sort of focusing out and opening your mind to whatever arises and noticing things that are arising. Practicing being non-judgmental. Saying to yourself wonderful mantras like clear seeing, be gentle, keep moving forward, which I use a lot as the second half of my Tonglen mantras. So that is the root practice. In a little while I'm going to read something that Pema Chodron says about how important samatha-vipassana is as the very foundation for all that we do. But there are actually other things that you can do either on your cushion during your 30 minutes or in your second 30 minutes, however you divide your life. I invite you to practice, to play with practicing with the 4 heavenly mind state practices. So you're familiar with these words because they appear all over the place. And in fact, our dedication of merit at the end of the morning will touch on all 4 of these. There is a practice called the loving kindness practice, where for the space of 30 minutes you can send out the energy of loving kindness. The Tibetans use 9 categories in which to send this energy, and I find it amazing the things that I experience inside of myself as I'm first of all sending myself loving kindness, then sending my spiritual teachers loving kindness, then sending my friends loving kindness, then sending a special person in my life loving kindness, and then sending a neutral person like the bus driver I saw yesterday loving kindness. You should try that. It's really wonderful just to try to imagine what's going through the mind of the person you know nothing about. And it's amazing to find out that you do know that it's making a difference to send loving kindness to them, even if you don't know them. In fact, the next category, in some ways, is just as mysterious as the category of the neutral person, and that is your enemy. Because it sends loving kindness to the people that tick you off the most. Sending the loving kindness to President Trump has been a very interesting experience for me, very interesting practice. And then the next category is to send loving kindness to all of the above, and then to send loving kindness to all humanity, and then finally to send loving kindness to all beings. And there are similar practices for compassion practice, empathetic joy, and equanimity. And then the sixth one, at least in the Tibetan tradition, is you can spend your time either in addition to samatha-vipassana or instead of samatha-vipassana doing Tonglen. Tonglen is the practice of taking in and sending out with the breath. But what is wonderful to me about it is that it is counterintuitive to the way we have been taught in the West, especially in modern movements of psychological expansion. We have been taught to say that you should breathe in the positive and expel the negative. Tonglen works the other way around. It's an amazing insight. To spend 30 minutes becoming intimate with your own negative habitual reactivities. And then on the out-breath, to say something that releases the negative energy and is an aphorism or a mantra that actually reduces the suffering that you were feeling from whatever the hook was that you are dealing with on your cushion. But that's not all. Tonglen is not just for yourself. Tonglen is for addressing that greatest of all causes of suffering, the Buddha said, and that is the delusion that we are all alone. So in the course of doing Tonglen, you are invited not only to address whatever the negative energy is that you're dealing with, but to share that with others you know are dealing with that same negative energy, and in fact, to imagine sharing it with everybody. Because, you know, for as horrible as we think we are, there is somebody out there thinking the same thoughts and being stuck with the same reactive tendencies at the time that you're doing so and doing your Tonglen. So be compassionate and share that with other people. So that's the context in which you practice Tonglen, which is one of the teachings in Lojong. But before I do that, let me just say something about your cushion. I'm going to be ending up today, I hope I remember to end this way, by saying that your cushion is perhaps the only safe place you have. Everything else in the universe is changing and coming to an end. And your cushion is just a symbol of your spot in the universe. So you don't need the cushion. Wherever you are sitting, that's your spot where you can observe it all going by in a non-judgmental and clear-minded way. So this is the reason why we come together every Sunday and sit together in order to practice having a time just to notice what's going on. Remember, the purpose of our meditation practice is not to change things, but to notice how things are, including when they're not changing. Just to notice that. Over time, the surprise is that just by noticing, movement happens. So I know that you are familiar with all these steps, but on the other hand, there are some new people who are new today, and I love the fact that you can always start over again in Buddhism when you have not been keeping up. So the instructions for sitting meditation for any of the 6 forms of sitting are, you can use any of 3 postures: sitting, lying down, or walking. The notion is to have your back as straight as possible and to imagine that your feet are connected to the center of the earth. You are grounded, and then you breathe. And I think that it's important to begin your breathing technique, that is, to follow the breath, by starting with the 3 deep breaths. Because you know what happens when you take 3 deep breaths, right? What happens when you take 3 deep breaths is, for the moment, you put your flight-fight response on pause. For the moment, you emphasize the parasympathetic nervous system in your brain, and you begin going to places of compassion and clear-sightedness. It is important after taking the 3 deep breaths, I think, to practice some form of body scan, because so often even meditators are meditating from the neck up instead of from the neck down. So I use the body scan that Pema Chodron recommends. I say to myself every time I sit down, seat, legs, torso, hands, eyes, mouth. And the reason why I do that is it is amazing how I hadn't noticed where I was holding tension. And when I do a body scan, I can actually I can feel my body relax and sink into the earth. And then I'm ready to meditate. So for samatha, the focus is, the notion of samatha is to focus in on something, like your breath, perhaps a mantra, perhaps a Tonglen mantra. For vipassana is in a way the opposite of focusing. It's like focusing out, where all you're doing is watching, where you're seeing clearly, being gentle, and you just keep moving on, which includes dealing with those thoughts that keep arising, where you might say what the Buddha did one time. He said, those thoughts that are arising, not my thoughts. They're just arising. I am not identifying with those thoughts. They're just thoughts. What other people do is they say, thinking, 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 and then move on. And Pema Chodron says that the last thing that you need to do to have healthy meditating is to enter it with a smile on your mouth. Try to be gentle with yourself. Try to laugh at yourself for things that are hanging you up. And she says, if you can't lighten up, then at least be curious. So, the place of Tonglen in the Lojong teachings is, its appearance as 2 of the slogans in the Lojong teachings. One of them, slogan 7, says, begin your practice with the sending and receiving of breath. And slogan 10 says, begin your practice with yourself. Now that's interesting because although the invitation is to begin with yourself, the purpose is to see that you are not alone in the universe. So the exchange begins quite quickly as you are doing the practice of Tonglen. Tonglen has both a practice and a technique. The practice of Tonglen is to breathe in the negative, to breathe out the positive. It's called giving on the in-breath and sending on the out-breath. I already said this, didn't I? I already been through this once, maybe. It's about exchanging. Here's something new. On the cushion, that's not new, it's one of the 6 meditations. On the spot, when the hook arises, the purpose of the practice of Tonglen is to take in and send out what's coming at that moment, and you know when it's working because the suffering begins to soften. Okay, that's the practice that I know that I was trying to get to this in my mind, and that is the technique. So, for this part, I want you to suspend your judgment about teachers telling you what to do. And to just try it. And in fact, after we go through this, I'm going to invite you to invent some Tonglen mantras of your own, and we're going to try the technique for like maybe just 2 minutes. And then later on, when I get to talking about how to use Tonglen in dealing with your reactivity about the Trump administration, then I'm going to invite you to practice Tonglen a second time. So, there are 4 steps in the technique to practicing Tonglen. And they're all important, and some of them may be a little bit hard to understand, especially the first one. When was the last time somebody told you to flash bodhicitta? So the concept of flashing bodhicitta is to remember that we were born with this incredible human birth with awakened hearts and minds that already want to be compassionate to others. Now, you know that because every time you are compassionate, you experience oxytocin, the same hormone you get when you're kissing somebody. But just to show compassion to somebody feels good to human beings, and I think that it is connected to our heritage, our inheritance of the absolute bodhicitta that all human beings have. We already are awakened heart-mind beings. By the way, I know that some people have problems with the church. And I've had my own problems with the church. And one of the theological conundrums of the Christian church is that it has at the center of its teachings the teaching that Jesus is the Savior, that Jesus is the one that does something to flip a switch to make your life go in a different direction from the way it was going before. Well, the truth is there's no definitive teaching on what it was that Jesus did that made a difference in people's lives on that cross. And some people say that what the cross really stands for is Jesus saying, from his stance of forgiveness and compassion, look, world, you are loved. Wake up to who you are already. So that salvation is not getting something new, but waking up to something you already have. Sounds a little Buddhist to me. And I personally like that notion myself. So the first thing you do when you are practicing Tonglen is, after you've settled into your body and done a body scan, you imagine what unconditional awakened heart-mind would be. This is a lot like the teaching we got from Dharmadasana on the emptiness that some people say we are destined to. That's actually what nirvana is. But I want to underscore the fact that there are 2 ways of defining the emptiness. One of them is to talk about empty sky, but the other is to talk about the open sky. So empty, open, it's 2 sides of the same coin. When you flash absolute bodhicitta, flash perhaps an idea about the sky above you and about how you already are enlightened. It's all over the place. Enlightenment is all over the place. The second step is to begin to work with the textures that are in our lives when we are suffering with our pain. Pema calls these the textures of claustrophobia and openness. So to start getting into the habit of breathing in the negative, remembering that the importance of staying in our bodies, Pema invites you to say something to yourself like, I'm experiencing the dark, heavy, hot feeling of this negative emotion that I'm dealing with right now. So for a while, before you actually name the emotion, you practice the textures by saying on the in-breath, dark, heavy, hot. And on the out-breath, you start getting into the practice of sending energy that heals by saying bright, light, cool. Sounds a little corny, but I want you to try it in just a minute, okay? The third step is to begin to move specifically in on your particular claustrophobia of the moment, your particular negative energy of the moment. If you're feeling sorry for yourself, that might be your negative energy, for example. And then the fourth step is to begin to expand the energy to include others, to remember somebody else who is dealing with feeling sorry for themselves, for example, and to begin imagining breathing in on behalf of them and of the entire human race, the tendency to feel sorry for it, to wallow in self-pity. And then on the out-breath, to send bright, light, cool with a mantra, a saying that works. So when we do that, the Tibetans say that what we're dabbling in is the other form of bodhicitta, which is relative bodhicitta. So they talk about absolute bodhicitta as the thing that you can't do anything about but just open up to, and relative bodhicitta as the thing that you have to say yes to in order to open your compassionate heart. And what Pema Chodron says is, you'll know when you have hit pay dirt on relative bodhicitta, when what you're experiencing in your relationships with other people is a sweet sadness. The feeling that we're in this together, we are complicated beings, we are stuck with the fight response, but we also have this tendency towards compassion. We get off on being compassionate. An image for this would be to widen the circle of loving kindness to include everyone. So I'm going to invite you to try these. To try these 4 steps as you settle down and take a posture of meditation. And I invite you to check in with your body. Actually, first of all, take 3 deep breaths, okay? All right, what's going on? What do you notice in your body? So, identify for yourself where the negative energy is for you. Begin to notice the texture of your negative energy, whatever it is. And while we are breathing in and breathing out for just a second, think to yourself in regards to that negative energy, it's dark, heavy, and hot. But I'm going to let go and experience my own awakened nature. And that's going to feel like light, bright, cool. So just on the in-breath and the out-breath, practice saying dark, heavy, hot. Bright, light, cool. Dark, heavy, hot. Bright, light, cool. Remembering the texture of your claustrophobia. Become intimate with the feeling. Whatever negative feeling you are struggling with that is causing you suffering right now, breathe it in. Dark, heavy, hot. And then invent for yourself a phrase that will work for you to steer you in the direction of the light. So, for example, I wallow in self-pity. I think clearly. I am gentle with myself, and I keep moving forward. I wallow in pity. I think clearly, am gentle, and I keep moving forward. Would anybody like to share anything they noticed? How did that feel?
I thought I had to simplify it. There were too many words. Things like be busy with, so I just simplified it like fear and light.
Great. Yeah. I know. I do that too. I start with something long and then I drop words. And so when you did that, what was the lightness that you experienced?
It was a combination of light as in sunlight and light as in less heavy.
Can you imagine doing that particular mantra for 30 minutes? And what do you imagine it would feel like after 30 minutes?
Expansive.
Yeah. I'm interested in the studies on mindfulness and the effects of mindfulness on the brain, and how the neural pathways that our brains take are very efficient, but they are always the same neural pathways. And in my experience of Tonglen so far, I feel that after 30 minutes of sending myself a different possibility for my reactivity, that I think I'm beginning to use different neural pathways. So that is what I invite you to take a look at. I'd like now to shift into an application of Tonglen for dealing with the situation that we are currently in. So in order to do that, and I need to tell a little bit of a story, and that is that during the month of June last summer, one of the other retired priests on the staff of the parish that I serve, which is St. Aidan's on Diamond Heights, preached a sermon in which he reminded every Episcopalian in the room that 4 times a year they repeat their baptismal vows, and that in addition to remembering the formula called the Apostles' Creed, they answer some questions, 4 questions. And the first of those 4 questions is, will you resist all evil? And I realized that for the first time in my Christian career, I noticed that resisting evil might include joining the resistance against the evil. I mean, actually doing something about it, actually becoming a resistor. But what I noticed at the same time was massive resistance to the entire invitation to become a resistor inside of me. So I decided to devote the entire summer to the practice of looking at, becoming intimate with, my resistance to the idea of resisting the evil that is going on around me. So by doing that, I began to have some very interesting insights. So first of all, I noticed that I crave comfort and security and ease before enlightenment and compassion. But yet I also reminded myself, I'm not alone in that. So I want to invite you to imagine spending time doing a Tonglen mantra where you were saying to yourself, comfort and ease on the in-breath. I crave comfort and ease. And on the out-breath, saying, I desire an expansive heart and an open mind. So imagine doing that for 30 minutes to see what might come next. So when I did that, I noticed next that I take everything personally. And that when I look closer, that beneath that is an attachment I have to the stories I tell about myself. So in my daily practice, I have begun looking at the stories I tell about myself. And in my Tonglen practice, I will say something like the story about being a hero. And on the out-breath, I will say things like, I'm here, step by step. On the in-breath, I will say, a story about being a hero. I want to be a hero. On the out-breath, I'm here, step by step. I noticed after practicing Tonglen with that particular one, that although I am my worst critic, almost all of my progress in Tonglen comes from my ability to keep going on. So I began using the Tonglen. I have a critical voice on the in-breath. On the out-breath, I would say, clear thinking, be gentle, keep moving forward. Critical voice, clear thinking, be gentle, keep moving forward. But then I began to notice something even deeper. I noticed that the most honest thing I ever have to confess about my neuroses is that I am attached to the story, if I displease them, they'll leave me. And that has to do with my relationships with my parents, my relationships with my husband, my relationship with my God, and in a way, my relationship with myself as well. It is all about pleasing people. It is about looking good for me, I noticed. So I began to be honest in my Tonglen practice, and I would breathe in, if they leave me, I'll die. If they leave me, I'll die. And on the out-breath, I'm here, step by step. If they leave me, I'll die. I'm here, step by step. Underscoring the fact that I am here for myself. So as a result of sitting with my resistance to resistance, I realized at the end of a summer of doing that I had become intimate with all of my considerations about joining the resistance. And there wasn't anything left but for me to say, I must join the resistance. Only I had to decide what were the forms of the resistance that were going to work for me. So in my Tonglen, I would ask myself the question, I must resist. And then I would say, is it skillful? Is it beneficent? Is it wholesome? So for 30 minutes I would say, I must resist. But then I would ask myself on the out-breath, is it skillful? Is it beneficent? Is it wholesome? Let me readjust myself here for a moment. So I noticed that I have been suffering less over the evil in the world and the darkness that I felt descend on me the day after the election in 2016. I noticed that I have become available for looking at ways that I can join a resistance. I have joined Faith in Action and have attended court hearings for bond hearings for immigrants. I've joined Faith in Action for the purpose of encouraging my congregation to become a sanctuary parish, which it has become. I'm considering being trained in being a first responder to be available in the dark of the night to go to people's homes during ICE raids. That one's going to be hard for me. But I am open to whatever my notion of resisting is going to be because of my being able to be gentle with myself in the course of my Tonglen practice. So, I want to introduce you to a couple of other Tonglen mantras that you might consider. I would invite you to use for looking at your own plan of action for joining the resistance. So, example number one for a Tonglen that would help you find your own course of action as a resistor is to use slogan 56, which is, don't wallow in self-pity. The Tonglen that I have used for that is, I'm wallowing in self-pity. I acknowledge it openly. I'm wallowing in self-pity. And then on the out-breath, I say, I see clearly, I'm gentle, and I keep moving forward. Example number 2. Following the slogan, don't malign others, I developed the Tonglen, I'm maligning myself, or I'm maligning, if I notice that I'm maligning somebody else, I say their name. And on the out-breath I say, I develop an interest in getting to know them and find out what's going on there. That may be a bit long, but it does have some cadence to it, and it works for me when I'm doing my meditation. A third example from slogan 11, the one that I have been spending time with for the last 3-4 months. When the world is filled with evil, transform all mishaps into the path of Bodhi, from which I have used 2 Tonglens. One of which is, I say to myself, the world is filled with evil. I feel the world filled with evil. Develop honesty and clear thinking and awaken my open and compassionate heart. That one's a little bit long. So I switched it to, when the world is filled with evil, I will resist. Is it skillful? Is it beneficent? Is it wholesome? And to be even more specific, when I am honest with myself, I will say, when the administration is evil, I will resist. Is it skillful? Is it beneficent? Is it wholesome? Would you be willing to sit with your resistance to the evil of this current administration and identify the feelings you have in the face of that, and then to invent a slogan on the out-breath, a mantra on the out-breath to deal with that? Would you join me in that for just a little bit? And then we'll wrap this up. So remember to take your posture, a position of comfort on your cushion or in your chair, to imagine, to have a straight back, to imagine being connected to the earth, and then flash on the bodhicitta that is your natural awareness. And then identify the heavy, hot, dark feeling you have about what's going on in this country. Identify your own version of that. What is the texture of your reaction to that evil? Breathe in, thinking dark, heavy, hot. And then begin to say bright, light, cool. And what words come up for you that will release bright, light, cool? Sometimes I just say to myself on the in-breath, the world is evil, there is evil in the world. The world is filled with evil. And on the out-breath, it's like that sometimes. So whatever your Tonglen, let's practice this for just a couple minutes. What did you notice in your bodies? Is this helpful to you?
I just noticed I'm kind of overwhelmed about how to respond to that because it's frankly, it's evil in so many different ways. Where do we even start?
So on the in-breath, did you consider using something like, I don't know where to start? Or I am overwhelmed.
One that's probably closer to better one.
I feel overwhelmed with the evil. On the out-breath, what would be a phrase that would break the dark, heavy hot of that?
Well, I can think of a really succinct phrase that the idea would be don't try to take it all.
Okay.
I'll focus on one small part and make a change. So, I mean, that's pretty long.
Overwhelmed by the size of it. I'm here step by step. I can imagine saying that to myself.
I think we'd identify where I could help.
Good. Anybody else? Sure. Risha?
I felt mine became the world is filled with evil, or there is evil in the world. I felt that that's just right. There is evil in the world. I send love to the evildoers. And I'm a teacher, and the whole shooting thing happened, and I'm thinking about the students I've had over the last several years who are suffering in ways that would cause them to do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that what everyone's missing is the kind of love, the brand of love they need. And so to somehow send it. But I feel resistant to send it, especially to someone like Trump or somebody like killers, But there's if I breathe in, that's like really deep despair, and I might consider it overwhelmed. But then breathing out just feels like a little, tick at the granite. I did it, if you chip away at the granite, eventually it will crack, but it might take forever.
So on the in-breath, did you say something like, I like...
There's evil in the world.
Like Clint did, okay. Or I'm overwhelmed by the evil?
No, I just said there's evil in the world.
There's evil in the world. And on the out-breath, what did you do?
I send love to the evildoers.
I send love to the evildoers.
I think a long time ago I tried to get rid of the word evil in my mind. It just seemed so black and white and despair for the condition that I characterize as evil, instead of seeing it as someone being terribly clouded and misguided and confused. And that makes me feel a lot less despair within myself if I don't go to that dark evil place. It just seems condemnation, devil, evil, God good. I mean, it's sort of a Christian thing that I sort of got away from the problem. So it's easier for me to think of more of a meta prayer. May Trump have peace, freedom, and happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what I want, and then I can identify. I can see how he's very much like me, whole different paradigm. You know, really honest, and I have to say that. So I have to really reconstruct that in doing this.
Mhm.
In and out, and I can.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Osvaldo, how are we doing on time?
We are about through.
Good.
Just about.
So what I want to say is that I will make myself available both after the session today and also if you would like to have a one-on-one with me. I actually think it may be more helpful to teach Tonglen one-on-one. It's a little bit of a slippery topic. So this may be only the first time. And I'd be happy to talk to you about it more. Okay.
And you'll be around for that.
Yes, I will.
Yeah, and just for the newcomers, forgot to mention that after the speaker finishes and we go through the announcements on dedication of merits, we have a half-hour social we'll be meeting over there, so we'll be saying hi to you.
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah.
Bill Weber would be proud.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
So are there any announcements? Usually there's one or two.
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah.
So last year GBF hosted a spring day-long retreat, and we're doing that once again. This year it's going to be Saturday, April the 14th. Dale Boardroom is going to be our teacher, and the theme is passion and compassion. It's sort of a gift to the Sangha. It's free of charge. Lunch will be provided. We do ask that you contribute generously to the teacher with dharma contribution. I'm going to put some flyers out here on the coffee table, and there's a link to register online. There's room for about 50 people, so we hope you'll consider joining us.
Hi, so Brian Bacchus is a member here, and he has accepted a position down in Los Angeles. So he wanted me to announce to everybody that he's going to maintain his apartment on Telegraph Hill with a great view and everything, and he would like to rent it out to somebody for, I think, at least a year. Is that what he said? Well, we were both on that email. For $1,950 a month. But it is a low-income, unit, but according to the city, and so there's an earnings limitation that's like $97,000. You can't afford this. Isn't that crazy? So anyway, so you can see me afterwards, and I can give you his details. But he would much rather have it be a GBF member or someone who's like-minded than to put it out on Craigslist. So, yeah, see me afterwards. Yeah, I just read that the income needed to buy a median home in San Francisco is now $303,000.
On that cheerful note, any other announcements?
I'm the host today. There's finger food and hot water for tea out in the room. Email sheet to sign up if you want to get announcements. I'll go around the double and get for lunch.
Yeah, and speaking of the Dana Bowl, of course, that's what sustains our rental over here and our reach efforts. And the lunch at Carl Larkin Street was
Dinner.
Dinner, yeah. So I guess our new rule is we used to say $10, but whatever you can contribute would be helpful. Okay. One more announcement for next week. Next week we'll have Laura Burgess, who's a lay entrusted Buddhist teacher in the Sotos and tradition. So we'll have another take on another tradition of Buddhism.
Harley had his hand up.
What's this?
Harley had his hand up.
Oh, just a quick mention that with the Lunar New Year, that the Chinese New Year, the Vietnamese Buddhist temple on Dubois Street, right off of Market, is open all weekend, and it's a lovely place just to stop by and have a little moment of prayer or silence or meditation, and then they have a lovely lunch that's available all weekend, anytime. And the people are very friendly and lovely and healthy, and it's just a nice little spot if you're in the neighborhood to stop by.
Once again, where is it?
It's on 15, Dubose, right below Market Street.
Oh, okay.
Vietnamese, it's Buddhist temple.
Just past that FedEx.
It's on this side.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's time for the dedication of memory. Thank you. By the power and truth of this practice, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all be free from sorrow and the causes of sorrow. May all never be separated from the sacred happiness which is without sorrow, and may all live in equanimity without too much attachment or too much aversion, believing in the equality of all that lives.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.